Supreme Court heard oral arguments in a case today that sounds incredibly boring, and yet could have a massive and extremely destructive impact on all of our lives. The case is called SEC v. Jarchese. While it sounds like it's only about the SEC, it's actually about every government agency that can help us. Here's a brief overview. So George Jarchese was a hedge fund manager from Texas, and several years back he got in trouble with the SEC. To make a long story short, he defrauded his investors. The investors filed a claim, and the SEC had a hearing. Now, as is common practice, this hearing did not take place in a federal court of law. It took place in an administrative hearing within the SEC, and it was presided over by an administrative law judge. An administrative law judge is like a real judge, but they work within the government, in government agencies. Now, here's where it starts to get important. These ALJs are not just in the SEC. They are everywhere in government agencies. There's thousands of them. They work to make sure that competition in our economy is fair. Consumers are protected. Polluters comply with environmental laws. Workers are protected. And Social Security benefits are fairly distributed. They sound really important, almost like they're keeping the wheels of government turning, don't they? Yes, they are. Now let's return to Mr. Jarchese. Now, in his case, the SEC ALJ, remember that, did find that he had committed securities fraud against his investors, and they fined him $300,000 and made him pay money back and kicked him out of the securities industry. Now, he decided to appeal, and he wasn't appealing based on the fact that he might be innocent. That was not even in question. He was guilty. He was appealing based on the fact that these ALJs should not have been able to try his case at all, and that this whole system where Congress allows these ALJs to try these cases within government agencies is no good, has to go away. This appeal eventually made its way up to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, which is a very known right-wing court, and they ruled in favor of it. And their justification for this ruling was based around something called the non-delegation doctrine. We need one more quick definition. The non-delegation doctrine is something that says that legislative bodies can't delegate their legislative powers to executive agencies or private entities. In its simplest terms, it really just means that only lawmakers, meaning Congress, can make laws. And no one is arguing this, in the sense that, of course, the president can't make laws, the Supreme Court can't make laws, but the Supreme Court has never applied this non-delegation doctrine to these agencies and their courts, because everyone understood we needed this delegation to function as a government. And all of that is why when the Fifth Circuit used the non-delegation doctrine as their justification, people got really nervous, because if this ruling is upheld and it's used as a precedent to target other agencies, it could have a significant effect on the government's ability to serve us effectively. And yet, based on this morning's line of questioning, it looks extremely likely that that is exactly what this Supreme Court is going to do. And they're doing that because Leonard Leo and the right-wing billionaire organizations that he funds want them to. Donald Trump, Leonard Leo, the Supreme Court that Leonard Leo bought, they all want the same thing. They are declaring war on the government. It's a plan being executed by the richest people in the country to stop the government from interfering in their ability to get richer. And with this case and the precedent it's going to set, the Supreme Court is making that much easier for them to do. So yeah, this case sounds really boring, and yet its consequences could be earth-shattering for any of us who use any government agency at all for anything. This horrible nonsense will not stop until we vote every Republican out and vote in enough Democrats to do Supreme Court reform. The many are more powerful than the money, but only when the many vote.